Once again, we have a Winchester on the bench. Although, as we know, it can't really be a Winchester, can it? Welcome back to Canuck Air. What I have here is a Winchester branded rifle, air rifle, 177 caliber. Big beast of a thing. This is a very large gun. I'll compare it to my other stuff later. And while it does say Winchester, it also says it's Daisy Outdoor Products, Rogers, Arkansas, USA. So it's a Daisy, sold as a Winchester, except the fact that on this end it says made in Turkey. So, well, yeah, that means it's a Hatsan product, isn't it? And yes, Hatsan made rifles for Daisy with the Winchester branding on them. And this seems to be around about 20 years ago, sometime in the mid-2000s, 2005, that kind of thing. Friend of mine picked this up at a flea market kind of thing with a two-for deal. Got this with a Chinese B3 underlever rifle that, well, after I got a chance to get a good look at it, decided it wasn't safe to shoot. The piston tube was bent, the back end it was barely holding on. It had been abused. Kind of hard to believe how somebody could bend metal that much, but it was damaged beyond all safe manner of shooting. So this ends up being his, well, all his money's now in this. So hopefully it's well worth it. It's a big, handsome, long air rifle. And should be decently powerful. Few things are loose on it. It's certainly dusty and dirty, so it needs a good cleaning, lubrication, I'm sure. And he thought he'd let me take a look at it and show it to you guys before he had some fun with it. But certainly is a handsome piece. Like the checkering, that's quite good. Turkish are always very good in that kind of thing. Has a safety on it, a little bit rattly. The scope has an encouraging little scope stop on it, so if the gun is as powerful as we think it is, stop that from shifting around. But yeah, I think the first thing I'll do is test it across my chronograph just to see what it's doing, and that way we'll know if we've been able to improve it or not by giving it a good service. So let's follow along. Okay, so I'm going to take 5 shots over the chronograph. This thing, I've tried it once already, is a beast of a thing to cock, so I have to kind of do it a bit outside of the camera. It's also a bit creaky, pretty stiff, so I'm just using the Kuanyan training pellets, just because I have a lot of them. Okay. Let's see. Oops. Turn the camera on. $8.16. It certainly recoils a heck of a lot. $8.29. $8.45. Power plant seems to be waking up a bit from its slumber. Guess it hasn't been shot in quite a while. $8.45 again. $8.19 again. Okay. So there we have it. At least we know where we stand, and if it does just as well after cleaning it and lubricating it, then that's not a bad thing. Sorry for the poor camera focus here. But the first thing to do with this, of course, is to get it out of its stock. And like most spring guns, there's just 3 screws you have to worry about. The stock itself is, yeah, quite nicely made. Trying to figure out how to get the trigger group out of the way. But first thing I'll do is get the barrel off so I can keep the spring compressed when I pull the piston out. It didn't break out my big twin clamp piston spring tube thing. I could tell by the plastic part in the back that wasn't going to be a huge amount of tension on the back of this thing. Though I realize I do have to get the safety out before I can get the back of it out. Yeah, this little fine screw screws into the plastic, and it's not too robust, but once it's in place and it's in the stock, there's nowhere for it to go. Yeah, that screw there that holds in the trigger group is also holding in the rear cap on the action. No huge amount of preload on this. It's quite easy to take out and presumably to get back in again. But it's pretty obvious that everything is really bone dry in here. Piston is really sticky in its tube. That's the top hat that goes inside the piston on top of the spring. We'll lubricate that when we put it all back together again. Really didn't like doing this, but didn't think I'd be harming anything, but boy, it is really stiff. Trying to move that piston back and forth. Just, as you notice, I'm letting this slide across the bench and just kind of doing this with inertia, not actually hammering hard against anything. I kind of figured out I had to kind of do it this way. The trigger group just slides in and out of the piston tube, but with the safety in place, you can't actually get it out. This poses quite a problem for me later on when I'm trying to figure out how to get it all back in again. At this point now, all the trigger pieces are falling out on me, so I do have to hope I can figure out how to get them back where they belong. Maybe there's an exploded diagram on the internet somewhere. Maybe not. Still can't believe how really difficult it is to get this piston to just slide back. Just gunked up with a lot of, congealed grease, I guess. So here's all the disassembled parts of our Winchester-Daisy-Hatsan Daisy Winchester. Everything looks in pretty decent condition. The gun is not terribly old, of course. Figured out that it's probably about made, according to the date code here on the cylinder. Looks like it probably was made. I lost that. It's on the side of the barrel, isn't it? There it is. Looks like it was probably made April 07, so it's less than 20 years old as of this video. So, but it is certainly very dry. There's almost no lubrication left on the spring here, so we're gonna fix that up with some good, probably the red and tacky grease is probably the best one for that. The main concern is this piston has a nice rusty spot on the side of it here, so they're gonna have to clean that off a bit. And polish it, and try to give the inside of this tube a good clean and lubrication as well, because yeah, if that got rusty, there's probably a little bit of corrosion inside as well. Trigger guard is plastic, so I don't have to worry about that. The spring guide and the rear trunnion of the gun is also plastic, so that's rust free. And no, the other parts look pretty good. I put the trigger parts back together, and I'll show you, that's all got to come apart anyway, so I might as well show you what I found out about that. I'm always sort of interested in how trigger mechanisms work in air rifles, given that they have to hold back the pressure of a very big, heavy spring, that something you don't see in firearms. A firing pin spring is considerably smaller and weaker than what's used in spring piston air guns. So here's our trigger mechanism here, all disassembled. I did make a diagram of where all the parts go. Hopefully I can remember what that is. First off, the trigger itself is plastic, and like a lot of triggers that we see in air guns nowadays, it boasts a nice little trigger adjustment screw right here. But unfortunately, it isn't attached to anything. Get a little Phillips screwdriver out here. And here's our adjustment screw, and I don't know if you can see this, but there's a little tiny hole peeping out there, and that screw all the way in there, nothing emerges out of there, so it doesn't actually improve the contact between the trigger and the arm that it works on here. So yeah, it's a placebo trigger adjustment. I've seen that on quite a few guns lately. Crossman's, Benjamin's, by Black Ops Langley. They all have these screws on there, and they go nowhere. But, you know, if you are industrious and you want to actually try to make use of that, since the engineers did design it to do something, put a different screw in there, a set screw, for instance, that doesn't bottom out, that keeps continuing on through, and you can have a trigger adjustment. So I'm probably likely to do that to this one, because it seems to be really long, unnecessarily long trigger pull on this gun. So this is not Hatsan's later Quattro trigger with all its fine adjustments, which some people say is sort of an effort to emulate the very fine Viroc Quattro trigger. Viroc Record trigger. Hatsan call it a Quattro, so apparently 4 adjustments or something like that on there. So this one is an earlier version and simpler, and I could not find a diagram for it anywhere on the internet to explain how this thing was supposed to go back together again after I got it apart. But I'll show you how it kind of all does work once I figured it out. This bar here goes right the way across the action. There is a spring that goes down to the bottoms out here, and that provides spring tension to push it back down this way. The trigger works up against that, so I put this thing in here, building this on the outside of the block. Hopefully this will work. And this piece here just operates sort of like that. And again, if the trigger adjustment screw poked through, it would actually operate something a bit more on that. And of course, it's doing nothing, just it's plastic on this metal piece. And then the actual the horsepower of this thing is right here. This is the actual hook that releases the piston. The piston comes back when it's being caught. Where have I lost it? Here we go. As the piston comes back, it pushes down on this, or it pushes down here, and then the mechanism clicks up into position like that and holds it. So the piston then can't come forward because this thing is blocking it. And why this can't roll down is because this piece here goes up there like that. A lot of pieces in this trigger, considering how really, bare stock simple a lot of trigger mechanisms are in some air guns. This shows some effort to make it a lighter trigger release, a more consistent trigger release. You're not just holding back the weight of the piston and its spring with just a trigger. You've got a little linkage in here. Pushing up on this, there is this lighter spring goes in between these two. If I've got that right here, yeah, I do. Not quite like that. This is a little bit easier when it's captive inside the mechanism. But the reason I took it apart again is I'm going to clean and lubricate all these parts and just make sure that we're operating properly. So when the trigger is set, this thing pulls back. Oh, it's not going to do that with that spring in there. This comes back and does this. These two pieces are locked together under the spring tension there, and they cannot, and it will not let the thing go forward until you pull the trigger and click. There you go. You can see there's a fair bit of motion there before it actually fired. But that is how this trigger works. And if you've taken one apart and don't know how to do it, put it back together again, well, hopefully this might help a little bit. The safety rides on the outside of the trigger block and across those two things there, and the spring goes over there like that, and it clicks up into these two positions. So you've got safety on and safety off as it goes back and forth like that. And it is an automatic safety because when the piston comes back, it pushes on this and automatically puts the safety on for you every time. But yeah, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this this screw out of there and see if I can find a set screw that will go up in there and actually provide a little bit of functionality to this, to what they originally designed. What's that, like a 2mm, 3mm? 3mm, I think. That's a very fine thread on that, though. I have to see what I've got. Okay. the lubrication process, I used some moly infused grease for the sides of the piston, which are all nice and shiny and polished now. I like how there's a nice little bevel on the back of the piston tube here, just designed to get you to squeeze that seal in there without damaging it. Nice touch. And of course, you may have noticed that the piston is a nicely machined part as opposed to being made of some sort of a folded stamping, which you find on the more economical Chinese offerings. Still a pretty tight fit to get it in there, but a little bit easier than getting it out. Now moving on to the red and tacky grease, which is a extra sticky grease designed to cling to itself and other things, and in air guns it is really great for dampening harsh vibrations, which on the more powerful spring piston rifles, it kind of comes with the territory. So this stuff works a treat on brawny guns like this. If you use it on lower power guns, I've discovered it can actually rob you of a few feet per second. So and doesn't really do much to, you know, soften the gun up like that. So the stuff looks stringy, but it's just that tackiness that clings to itself. It's made by Lucas Oil, in case you're wondering. It's not easy to get. I squeezed some into this little tub here because out of a grease gun cartridge, because I couldn't find the small containers of it, which are available. I just couldn't get any. I was in a hardware store up in Georgian Bay, and I did see some on a shelf there once, and I didn't buy it just because I was on vacation, and it was still silly me. I ended up having to buy a big tube of it later. So my big spring clamp just basically pushes the spring back in. And put that in. Ah, presto. Easy, no problem. Yeah, there's a problem. Had to take it back out again because I left out the little steel nut that goes inside the plastic, the rear part of the piston cap. So you have to have that in there because that's what the trigger retaining screws into. But I ended up deleting about at least a half hour's worth of video because trying to figure out how to get the trigger group back into its little pocket there without the safety. And what I hit upon, I was using a small piece of nylon in place of the longer pin. So that's a piece of white nylon. I cut off that little screw there sitting beside my punch. And what I'm able to do is get it into position, and then position in the safety, which is this piece right here. Oh, again, I'm going to lock it all in first. That's right. Took me quite a while to figure it out how I did this, because it's one of those things you sit there thinking, okay, how do they do this at the factory? Because you just couldn't put these pieces all in together at the same time. So wriggle the safety into its position. And then now what I have to do is substitute the longer pin for the short one that I've just made. Oh yeah, I gotta put the safety in first, otherwise things get kind of messed up. So now what I'm going to do is my punch, I'm going to drive out that little piece of white plastic I put in there and replace it with my punch. Now the piston latch and the safety are now both captured by that by my punch. And then I have to wriggle the punch out, if I can, and replace it with the pin that will be staying in place. I assume they had to do something very similar to this at the factory. Because I figured pretty well there was no way that they put the trigger pack in and then assembled all the pieces into it. It just didn't work. You had to put all the pieces in first, slide it into the piston tube, and then get that pin through it to hold it all in place. And the safety catch gets its spring. And there you go. So I figured before final assembly I should at least clean the barrel out on this thing, see what's in it. Just a usual cleaner here. Okay, so it goes in easy enough. A little bit of something. I think I mentioned before, but the code here, 0407, suggests this gun was made in April of 2007, which makes it less than 20 years old at the time of I'm shooting this video, but coming up on 20 years old pretty quickly. Yeah, he is actually just lodging a bit more. It does seem to be loosening some stuff up, doesn't it? I do have a 177 bore brush. I'm not going to use it though. I've also got a bore snake around here somewhere too, but you have to be really desperate to want to use that. But just cleaning out probably some baked in oil residue from lots of previous shooting, a little bit of lead. Yeah, still coming out. Okay. Through dry, still getting some residue out. It's mostly brown, so I'm thinking mainly oil. Does look nice and shiny though, so maybe I'll stop there and then get the gun back together. This gun does have nice little slip washers on the sides of the breech block here, which is rather reassuring. You see that on nicer guns for sure. Okay, so fluff in there. Okay, I should probably slather this a little bit. Couldn't hurt. Okay. I don't think we're going to get that past that. Okay, so what's in the stock? Stock stops this from coming down. Oh, no, it doesn't. Yeah. Single linkage, not double, not hinged in here. I think I can seat that down past it, the locking wedge. Or maybe I can. Okay, that looks like I've lined it up. That'll do it. Okay, I can adjust that. Well, later maybe I can. No, the stock is going to be in the way, so to adjust these things you have to get it so that when the gun is cocked, the barrel is stiff. It doesn't flop around when it's loose, essentially. So this has to be tightened in enough that it doesn't keeps the forks nice and tight against the barrel. So I'm just going to set it where I think the torque feels about right. And this is this little set screw right here. Very odd that it's Phillips threaded. There you go, that goes in there. If it's too loose, well, I'll just have to take it out of the stock and adjust it later. Okay. And the next thing is the stock. Right. Looks like these pins here, the only thing that holds them in place is the wood. There we go. Line up nicely. More than can be said for a lot of other guns out there. Goes there. That is stripped. Fronts are done up. There we go. All back together. So the next step is to set up the chronograph and see if it actually shoots. So before I take it to the range, I thought I would weigh it in here. The Hatsan Daisy Winchester weighs 8 pounds 4 3/4 ounces. And it measures 47 inches long, pretty much, almost 47, which in modern money is 119 centimeters and 3.76 kilos. So yeah, pretty hefty gun. And comparison-wise, size-wise, this is our Hatsan there, and this is a Crosman Optimus for scale, which is a fairly well-known and popular rifle. So as you can see, the Hatsan's a bit longer, but that's not the whole story, as it's got a good bit more heft and girth to it, right, especially right through the wrist. Definitely a chunkier gun, to be sure. And if you compare it with, favorite plinkers from our youth, like this Slavia 618, of course it's an absolute monster, but this, of course, is a very, very tiny air rifle by any standard. Okay, let's take it to range and see what we can do with it. So here's the 6 pellets I'm going to be trying out today. Got 3 different weights of JSBs. I'm going to try them in this order. Diablo 8.44 grains, Heavy Diablo 10.34s, Monster Diablos at 13.43s. Don't expect these to do terribly well. Not really designed for spring guns, but yeah. And then I've also got the JSB pointed pellets, which sometimes do well, sometimes not. And H&N Field Target Trophy, which are very, very promising in my Turkish barreled Kral gun. So this is a Turkish gun, so let's see if that does well there. And I'll try the Kangwan air gun training grade, which are actually 8.2 grain woodcutters. So I'm going to be shooting these at 20 yards, so we'll see how they do. Some people argue that woodcutters shouldn't be stretched much past 10 meters, but yeah, we'll see. 20 yards will do it. I sighted the gun in for 20 yards. I didn't bother with the shorter range, which was kind of helpful because the scope doesn't have an adjustable objective and it's very hard to focus. Even at 20 yards, the target's a bit fuzzy. But before I took it to the range, though, I did run across the chronograph again. And this time I came up with an average of 909 feet per second. They range from 902 to 918. And the extreme spread is only 16, which means the foot-pounds has now gone up from 12.5 originally, now up to 1505. So, yep, and even though the gun is now a bit more tame and a bit more comfortable to shoot, it's actually a bit more powerful. So, red and tacky grease to the rescue in that instance. So how did we do? Well, these are the JSB 8.44 grains. They just call the Diablo. Just about cover that with a Canadian 25-cent piece. The JSB 10.34s, what they call the heavy, definitely fits under a quarter. And yeah, get under a nickel. That's pretty good. 10-cent piece, no, not quite. The JSB 13.43 grain pellets, aiming here, end up down here. So it's funny how the point of aim shifts as you change the weight of the pellet. It's not just all about up and down with drop, but you also get a bit of a movement to it too. So yeah, you can't just swap pellet weights around in certain guns and expect them to just, you know, all follow them in line. This one here, a Canadian loonie, is not quite covering it. Maybe you need a $2 coin to do that, so I don't have one in my pocket right now. And the JSB Stratton pointed pellets, tried well with these, but they're not liking this gun. And this one here, HN Field Target Trophies, different type of pellet. This we have a definite flyer, perhaps. Again, a large-ish group. These four though do fit under a $1 coin. So, but yeah, a bit too open. I'm trying my best with this. The scope is not great. I'll give you that. That's a bit fuzzy, but I am aiming for the middle of the fuzzy blob, so it should be pretty decent. And again, it can be with certain pellets. These are the wad cutters, the Chinese one, the training grade ones. I do have some match grade ones around somewhere, but 4 of them went under a quarter, but the other one just stretches about a bit too. So yeah, yeah, this gun probably kind of hold sensitive, could use a better scope, and it's also possible these are only 6 pellets. There's a lot of different ones we could try in it, but anyway, I'll have to return it to its owner, and at least he'll know that, well, maybe that's not a bad pellet to try in it. 0th inch could be pretty good. Should get better scope for it though.
So there we have it. Our Hatsan Daisy Winchester 1000 has performed perhaps better than expected. Taking apart proved that there are some better than average parts inside it. Definitely nicer built than some of the cheaper offerings that we see these days. So this is a nice gun. Maybe a bit overpowered for some purposes and a bit harder to cock. But a 900 plus foot per second gun isn't nothing to sneeze at. And its accuracy with the right pellets is pretty darn good. And there's probably some better pellets out there somewhere that it will do even better with. It does need a better scope. The one that came with it is, quite frankly, not up to the task. You definitely need something with an adjustable objective to focus on closer targets. It's air gunning. That's what we need. So the owner of it is definitely planning on doing an upgrade there for sure. Again, that Turkish walnut stock, which is what I think it is just definitely a cut above most of the stocks that come out with these spray tan finishes that pretend to be something better than they are. Anyway, thanks for watching. Canuck Air will return. We have some more fun projects in the works. Consider subscribing.